Hi everybody. Today is a miracle day and I want to thank a couple of my subscribers for reminding me how important it is to think of others and to send miracles through the airway, and that's what we want to do before we discuss humidity in orchids. So Lynn and Kathleen, they have mentioned that someone in the orchid world is maybe not feeling too good. And so as a group, it's funny, like even my subscribers, I get to know you and your friends. And I just love sharing what I know with you, and you come back and share with me. And I also reach out to other people that have YouTube channels that just love the miracle we perform with our orchids. And I think it's important to realize how powerful as a group we are. If we all think the same thing at one time, we have the power to send happiness and healing thoughts across the world. So before we do our orchid talk today, I just want to say that Rick L. Orchids, who I subscribe to, according to some subscribers, has been missing for a while. And we do know that they have had some health problems in their family. And as a group, we want to send the best miracles we can out to Rick. And if you just, while you're watching this, just think of that for 1 minute, and it can work wonders. We are more powerful than we think. We are a very loving group. We love the creation of flowers. We love each other, and we're all such nice people. So we want that to grow in the world. We want to overpower all the sickness and evilness, and the best way to do it is to be forgiving and loving and kind. So in that way, we will send this wish to Rick and his wife, and we'll also send wishes out to each other. And as you send a wish out, it's very good for you because you're caring for somebody and it comes back to you. So it's a wonderful gift that goes on giving. So just think of them and think of the other subscribers and everybody in your circle. And we start that off with a happy note because it's not sad. It is happiness we want to bring and love. Okay, so enough of that. Now, today I want to discuss humidity because holy smokes, we have had on the Weather Channel yesterday, it said outside was 100% humidity. I mean, you have to put on for 100% humidity. You think you just walk out into a ton of water. But we have had rain, and we have had the most humid late summer I can remember. So I do want to talk about humidity and watering your orchids and things you might be doing you shouldn't do when your humidity is high. So normally this time of the year we're still having nice dry weather, and the interior is known for drier air, drier weather. So in the winter, of course, our humidity can drop to like 30 in the house. And then you got dry conditions. And you look at your plants differently. And the same with outside. If it's freezing cold out there, it's dry. So right now we have humidity. So when you have high humidity, you have to, like, I just turned my humidifiers on just for this video. I have not had them on they do not need to be on because the humidity is already, even today, and I've been leaving my windows open. I do want to get one of those gauges that say record your low and your high of each day, and you can reset it and you always know what it was. But ours is pushing 70 in the house with me doing nothing. So normally when it's dry, I'm misting more. And a lot of people, if you read through a lot of orchid information, do not believe in misting. A lot of very serious orchid growers, but then there's those few that really do. So I'm going to put myself in that I like to mist. Normally I just mist with water, but when I first started with orchids, I had the Miracle Grow 111, I think it was, little bottle you buy, and I used to always mist my orchids in the winter, especially when it's dry, in the summer when it's dry. But if you know that your humidity is high, please, you do not have to mist. Now if you're worried about maybe some aerial roots, you could dampen a cloth and just put it around them. But you should not really be misting, because what happens is, and then how you're misting too. So I am not misting now. I was, and I had added, I made my own Miracle Grow spray. And some people have mentioned, my nice subscribers, that they were doing it, and I thought, you know, I used to do it and I really liked it, and I started it again, and yes, I noticed the leaves are happier. So I have this tiny little measuring scoop, and it says a smidgen, and I mean it is small, as you can see, very small, and it says a smidgen. I mean, you know, I probably picked it up somewhere. And I have this bottle. This is a spray bottle I use a lot, and it's a bigger one, and it's probably about 22 ounces or 625 just to here. So you can add a little more to that. So it's a pretty, it's probably about 24-ounce bottle. And to that, I added a smidgen, and because this is the time of the year, I'm not trying to encourage flowers yet. I just want the plant to have strong leaves and strong roots. And this is a fertilizer that I have been using since I started with orchids. It is Plant Prod, and the other fertilizers I use, which I don't have right here now, but are Schultz, and this one do have nitrogen with a little bit of urea base. You know, I have been happy with this from the beginning. Same with the Schultz. I do not worry about it. They design, the Schultz people design, let me get a bottle, hold on. Better run outside. Okay, this is one 1555 by Schultz, and they design for orchids different fertilizers, and I've purchased them online with the high middle number, the high first number, and some added magnesium also, and it's my most often used fertilizer. But when I want a good nitrogen boost, I do have another one that has a higher nitrogen boost. So I do not worry about that little bit of urea. I've read tons of stuff, and some say don't have any, but I have had no trouble, and it's a very debatable, there's always these debatable questions in the orchid world. And it's fun to go into them, and you can type in what you want to hear about, and you can go on blogs. You can just say you want to go to a blog. Very, very interesting what goes on. So I can only say what I know works for me. So this is a plant prod that's 15, 15, 18 that I have had for years. And it's almost a balanced fertilizer, except it's a little higher on that N number. And what's that N number for? All over growth. All over growth. So a smidgen in this bottle, shake it up because this is a granular. And then this is good to use. There's not very much because I fertilize, and so do you. Like once a week we fertilize. It does not need a lot, but I have found the leaves like it, and the aerial roots seem to like it. So I have been using it, but do not use it when you have high humidity. Do not hold it really close to the pot and like spray a whole bunch on the media. That is like another watering in itself. And if you have a small pot, say like this one, it's just growing a new leaf. And we're not switching to the higher middle number for flowers because there's still a lot of root growth happening. The longer that little point of growth is, the faster it is growing, where the color changes. Now these got watered yesterday, but if I was to take this sprayer and go like this, see if I can get, and I just filled it. So if I was to do that every day, and that goes through every day, that is like a watering. That is not what I do. When I miss, it's like this. It's very light. And sometimes when aerial roots are funny because you almost have to miss them and then go back in 5 minutes and miss them again because they're like, they wake up slow and they need their coffee first. So the first shot on your aerial roots is kind of like that cup of coffee. So then you go back, and it's kind of woken them up, but they're really not absorbing too much. So you go back in a few minutes, and they absorb it. So you can do it again. But try not and soak, unless you're in a dry area. If you're in the winter and it's dry, you're not worried about extra humidity in a pot this size. A pot this size will dry out faster because it's smaller. And all I have is bark in here, so it will dry out faster. Now if you have bought media bagged and it's not just straight bark, that will not dry out as fast because it's more compact. But the bark has more air. It has lots of holes. It is going to dry out fast. So this pot may do better in high humidity conditions. Just put it back. Now, if you have mostly high, which we do not, mostly high humidity conditions where your orchids are, these clay pots are ideal because the whole pot breathes, not just where there are holes. So you want lots of holes and you want the whole pot to breathe. So you don't want to paint it. So if you're in high humidity area, most of the time you want dryness. Inside, you don't want anything that's going to hold moisture very long, and you want bigger air spaces. So large pieces of bark, large pieces of lava rock, large pieces of, some people even use charcoal, and some people even use styrofoam peanuts as most of what goes in, because what's inside your pot is not feeding your orchid. That's not what is feeding your orchid. It is just holding your orchid there so you can move it around. So this is an ideal pot for a high humidity situation. But normally we do not have that problem here. Now I find even these small pots, normal, they have a enameled surface, but they have lots of holes. So because of the enameled surface, it holds a little more humidity than the clay pot. But it has lots of holes and it's small. It will dry out quicker. So you might not be in a real humid place, but this size will dry out quicker. So check inside your pot. I always say it's so important. You have to get to know your plant. It doesn't hurt them. I do it all the time if I'm checking on a plant. It does not hurt them. And so you want to know how those roots are doing with a 1 day a week watering. And the best way is the day before you water or the day you water is to dump it out and have a good look. Then you know. So if anything's wet and gooey, clean it up. Now the first pot that I started with, because I didn't know what an orchid pot was, or then when I learned, I knew it needed holes. And we were busy painting here, and I had latex paint is sold in plastic paint buckets. So when the latex paint got empty, we washed it out, built big holes. And so this pot, because it's plastic, my first orchids did excellent in it because the black plastic helped hold humidity in. And you still need the air to get in. So we have large holes. So this is the pot I'm using for the orchid that got crashed over during the building, and it seems to be doing really well. So pots make a big difference. And this pot, these are great for here. We're not normally too humid or too dry, just lately. So this one here, it's got the air holes. Whoops. I watered yesterday, still coming out. So that's a good thing to remember. But why I don't want you, if you're in high humidity, misting is I really don't think it's a good idea. With higher humidity, if you're in that position, clay pots are good, or at least pots that are smaller and have lots of holes. And ventilation is to keep those plastic pots that you buy that a lot of people use, they're very good for helping hold humidity in. Now, if it's staying too wet, you may have to drill some extra holes, and I know people that have. And that makes a big difference. But if you don't have a lot of space and you find you can look at the roots, you can see how they're doing, you can see if they're too wet, you can see if they're too dry. All those are good reasons for those plastic pots, and also they don't take up as much space, they're easy to group. But when you're grouping them, be careful you haven't crowded them all together, leaves touching, because you could get a problem with not enough air circulation. Therefore, if you're doing that, a small fan will help the plants dry quicker when they need it dry. It will help with a bug situation and not getting disease because of different things. In fact, because it's been so humid with this orchid, I see it's still in there. I didn't want, I get my leaves wet, and I didn't want these two leaves that were so tight close together to stay wet inside. So I took a little pad and I put it in there because these leaves are very close. And if they're wet, and I often get mine wet, I don't worry about it because I have fans and it's usually warm in the house and they dry off quick and I only water in the morning. But if you have leaves that stay wet and then they're close together, you're setting yourself up for problems. Also, if it's very humid in your house and you have humidity outside and inside and you water, you don't want to leave any water on those leaves. The water will run down the leaf into the crown of the plant, unbeknownst to you, and it will start up a rotting situation. So, the air humidity in your home is making a big difference in how you're caring for your orchid. So, when you're misting, ventilation is good. And most of the time I mist first time in the morning and sometimes in the afternoon if I know it's a hot, dry day. Even though I've just watered, well, maybe not on watering day, but the next day, the bark dries quickly, and I just do it. But people, be very careful, very careful. It's not a watering thing. It's sort of a misting humidity, and that's all they need from a distance. That is already on the leaves and on the roots. Now, the aerial roots, if it's dry, yes, go ahead and do them up closer. So, if you're not sure about the humidity in your house, get a little gauge. These are from Canadian Tire, and they're very, very cheap. And they're very accurate. So, ventilation and fans. That fan that we put here, I noticed a big difference. I did have one already in the living room where I always kept my orchids and always thought that was helpful. So it's been better for me too. So the fan helps. It's just a ceiling fan and it was put in a normal light socket. So that's a good thing. Dry weather, it's a big, big difference. So, the reasons, and also I never miss my flowers because you can get spots on them and they'll stay there. So, I never do that. Under the leaf is a stomata, and if it's very humid, the stomata will open. They often open more at night than in the day, but the stomata will open when it's humid. And if it's dry in your room, but you're misting too much, you may cause the stomata to open, and what happens, it may stay open and then actually let some of the moisture in that leaf out. So you're actually defeating your purpose. You're drying your leaf rather than helping it with moisture. So that's another reason. I just do a light mist in the dry times, not now, way too humid. So we don't want any rotting orchids, and just in case, I did it once, and this is why I know, on a small pot, if you mist too heavy, this could be one of your problems. So I recommend you, oh, hi, Mom. Come on in and say hi. Everybody's always asking where you are. So
well, I'm here.
You have to come.
I'm here.
There she is. It was our shopping day today. We went shopping. So that's how you look when you're on the camera.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah. So we're just talking about humidity, and we're just about ready to wrap it up.
Okay.
And
then I'll tell you why I came up.
okay, let's both say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.